Good evening, Cherries fans, and welcome to our free-for-all reaction show after, of course, a disappointing result off the back of what was an outstanding result the week before. Of course, I am joined here by the main man in yet another Cherries shirt that you might not have seen. The blue and black number. One of my favourites, to be honest. Mr. Matthew Harrison, how you doing, mate?
Yeah, not bad. Not bad. How are we doing?
Good. Yeah, all good, mate. All good. Now, by all means, please do get involved in this show. Please do like and share on Facebook, Twitter, wherever you want to. And all the details will be just scrolling in a moment along the bottom of how you can get involved. Before we do that, we do have Bailey waiting backstage. Thank you for waiting patiently, Bailey. We're just going to run our video from our sponsors, Dental on the Banks. To find out what they can do for you, visit dentalonthebanks.co.uk. Now, yesterday, of course, we were beaten 3-0 by Aston Villa. We was hoping we'd be showing you that graphic. We couldn't. But, of course, I didn't create the graphic for 3-0, believe it or not. Didn't expect that. Let's welcome on, though, our first guest, somebody who is very, very happy after the result. Hello, Bailey. How you doing, mate?
We've got Super I am we? Yeah, big up, lads. We'll get on to the game, but I think you played well first half. Let's just say that. But second half, you was a bit shocking.
Yeah, and actually, we'll cover all of that because we did concede rather early, and to be honest, when you concede early, it gives us more time to actually come back into the game, and really, we did match Aston Villa, would you say, for quite a long period of time after that goal went in. Firstly, was you surprised how quickly Villa did come out the traps? Because I think you're a completely different side to the side that we played back at the start of the season.
Me or Matt?
Yeah, go for it, Bailey.
Yeah, of course. At the start of the season, of course, you did beat us. Douglas Luiz, always scores past you. You never can keep him out, to be fair. But I think for Villa yesterday, we were struggling who could be man of the match. Because with loads of players, I think John McGinn played well. I think he turned all your players. Douglas Luiz played well. Matty Cash, mate, he just went in for tackles. It was Tyrone Mings. It was some more players, but yeah, I think we did play well. I think first half, in my opinion, it was a bit boring. But we got that early goal through Douglas Luiz. And I think Neto, your keeper, made a really good save.
Hmm.
And yeah, so it was 1-0 half time. Came out second half. All Villa fans said we all expected you to come out fighting because you, of course, want to stay
Hmm.
up, and we
Yeah.
expected you to come out fighting to try and get a goal and get something from this game. But you
Hmm.
really didn't. Really, we were much better second half. Um, I think, what I say from Emi Martinez from that Philip Billing free kick. I was a bit nervous about that, to be fair. I thought it was going to go in, but Martinez knew where he was going. Then, of course, Jacob Ramsey got that second. Then, of course, we got that third. We probably could have had 4 or 5, to be fair. I think we scored 2 offside goals. One was apparently out, but
Yeah.
I didn't really see it. But yeah, I think a good win. Are you going to stay up? Maybe. I think Southampton are picking up the points now. You see Leeds United beating Wolves yesterday. Who else? I think West Ham will go down, in my opinion.
Hmm.
I think Everton picked up a point as well.
Yeah.
So you see all them teams near you picking up the points this weekend. And yeah, we'll see what happens at the end of the season. But a good win for Aston Villa. McLaren Army got tough games after the national break. We got Chelsea away, Forest, Newcastle, Brentford, Manchester United, Fulham, Brighton, Liverpool. We've got them teams above us, and we need to pick up the 3 points and try and get that Conference League spot. But yeah, good win for Aston Villa yesterday.
Well, we've got to mention one of our players who, of course, Matt, did break a record, and it is that man. Go on, talk about it.
He broke the Premier League appearance record yesterday, didn't he? He made his
He did.
169th Premier League appearance. So that's now a record for him.
Yep. And of course, one man that did come off the bench, and it's great to see him back. David Brooks.
Yeah, I was just gonna talk about this. Fair play to, of course. I just want to say, Aston Villa have been a bit idiot fans this week. Of course, Paul Mitchell, former Birmingham City fan, died who punched Grealish 4 years ago. But David Brooks came off the bench and we clapped him. And I think we was the first fans to clap David Brooks since he is back. And I really like David Brooks. I said before a game, I think he's a cracking player. And if he starts today, he will make us problems. But yeah, I think he will start to get going again and score goals for you.
Well, hopefully, fingers crossed. I will come on to that in a second, but we do have another man waiting backstage. You will recognise him. Here he comes. It's only Manny. How you doing, Manny?
All good, mate. All good. Obviously, I
Excellent.
kind of had my arm twisted by Mr. Francis next to me to come on, and we were supposed to do a review together. But listen, I mean, I enjoy coming on here. I'm happy to be in Bailey's company. I do have my eye on El Clasico going on right now, but I am focusing my attention on this game. I did see quite a bit of it. Obviously, it wasn't shown on the television, but I was able to watch it another way, and I just think, in a nutshell, like I said, I didn't see very much, but I just think it was the defensive frailties that cost you. Because when it came to the team selection, Gary O'Neill he did the right thing, obviously, by keeping that same formation and pressing with that. But I think Pedro Neto will probably look back on that game and think that those two goals, the second and the third one, should not really have been conceded. And I think it was just another efficient performance tactically from Unai Emery, and the boys responded. These are the types of games that Aston Villa will need to win if they want to try and compete in Europe. And Aston Villa were higher up in the table than the Cherries, and the Cherries still have a better run-in than the other teams. So hope still springs eternal. Please don't worry about it.
Well, hopefully, fingers crossed. One thing I wanted to bring up, actually, and I've got to head off very, very soon. I will be back. It'll only literally be for about 10 minutes, but I will be on Talk TV tonight with Mark Saggers. So, by all means, we'll have the footage as well with regards to that. So, the thing I did want to mention was David Brooks coming off the bench for Adam Smith. And we spoke about this at the time, didn't we, during the watch along, Matt?
Yeah.
And it was an amazing moment that Brooks come off the bench. However, I think that our shape and our frailties showed once he did. It's not Brooks's fault. Don't get me wrong. It's not David Brooks's fault that. I think what it was a tactic that was completely got wrong, and maybe it would have been better to keep Smith, on the pitch. Maybe bring somebody else off. I think Don Guattara, like we were saying, Matt, was starting to get a little bit leggy, wasn't he?
Yeah. Did seem that it did disrupt the shape a little bit, didn't it?
It did.
And the timing, I don't think the timing was perfect.
No, I think it's a shame to say that because it's great to see him back. And I thought, at the time, he could come back on and he was going to really throw himself into that game. To be honest, I'm sure if he was given the chances, he probably would have done. He didn't really make many touches of the ball, did he?
No, but obviously he'd be lacking game time, wouldn't he?
Yeah.
What about Brooks there? Sorry, where?
Yes, David Brooks. Yeah,
obviously he'd be lacking. It's just nice to see him back out there, wasn't it?
It was.
After all, the troubles he's had, and it's a shame. Obviously, he came on during a 3-0 defeat, but for me, it was just great seeing him back out there.
But at that point, it wasn't. It wasn't 3-0. It was 1-0. We were 1-0 down.
To come into a game where we lose 3-0.
Yes, definitely. What I'll do is when I do come back on, we'll pick up with regards to Gary O'Neill, and because Max will be on in 5 minutes as well. So always good to have Mr. Max Cowlard on the show. And looking forward to seeing you. And Niall, thank you so much for joining us, and hope you're well. There is quite a few people on Facebook as well watching, but by all means, please do leave us a comment as well. And anything that you want us to discuss. I think one thing that is going to be a key discussion during this show is a lot of people have forgotten the good work that Gary O'Neill has done since that during that Liverpool game, that run up to that Liverpool game, because of this defeat. Personally, I don't think I think we was well in this game until that substitution. What did you guys make of that? And do you think that Bournemouth fans really should be appreciative of what Gary did last week, and is he getting it right?
I think I'll sort of start with that, if I may,
Go
Craig. And it's a bit like I said in the cherry picking episode. In as much as we can be appreciative of the work that Gary did, and we definitely should be, because the challenge that he had after that demoralizing defeat was nothing short of immense, but he certainly handled it with grace and dignity. But we also have to remind ourselves that football is a results business, and you're only as good in many ways as the game you play, the last game you play, or the next game you play, or whatever. And you have to make sure that you are tactically on the pulse. And that segues into the introduction of David Brooks. Again, because of the because I was sort of busy watching another game at the time, I was only able to catch snippets of it. In fact, I am trying to catch some of the highlights of that match on YouTube. Fat lot of good they'll do me, but whatever. I just think that any manager worth his salt would know that you don't replace a right back in Adam Smith with a guy like David Brooks, in whom for whom that position would simply be alien to him, really. And it's a question of that level of that sort of a substitution. Yes, I get it that it may be sentimental, but if it's made for the person in that position, and you mentioned Otara was looking a little bit tired, perhaps it proves to be an inspired decision, and that can have the certain effect. But replacing a defender with a midfielder or a winger or what have you, it really does throw the shape off, and you don't really know what sort of role Brooks can play. I don't even know what role he was expected to play, and I don't know if he was necessarily culpable for the goals either. But I mean, just taking a look at the highlights, you can see that with the second goal, particularly coming down the Aston Villa's left, which would be where Adam Smith's position would have been. You've got to look at that and say, you know what, maybe that is the case. So I would have had no problems with bringing on David Brooks. It would have, I mean, sentimentally, it would have been one. It would have been, necessary, but also from a footballing perspective, it would have been the right thing to do. But sometimes, again, it's a question of those little things which can make very big differences. And there have been points in other games when some of O'Neill's decisions have been questionable, to say the very least. I think we can all agree, Craig, that in terms of the unity, the solidity, the cohesiveness, and the sense of purpose that he's brought back into the team, O'Neill should be credited, definitely. But again, it's all about what happens at the end of the season. And not to, club drop. But it's a little bit like all of these fans saying we should be definitely grateful for what Mikel Arteta has done with the club this season, the type of football we're playing, and all that jazz. But listen, on Thursday we got knocked out of a European competition, which we were supposedly favourites to win, and the same fans who bigged it up saying that we should win this and we will win this are now coming and saying, well, it's a price worth paying if we win the league. But anyway, that aside, I think a lot of Bournemouth fans are going to be very eager to see the club try and survive relegation. And if you don't, there will be some who will understandably call for Gary to be replaced. I do have some confidence in the gentleman who came on for our last call-in show, a call-in show where I was on. I think that was for the Arsenal-Bournemouth game, where he said that even if Bournemouth go down, he would love Gary to stay because he'd be the perfect person to help bring the club back up and try and keep everyone together in a way. But sometimes when it comes to tactics and his decisions and his in-game management, he does need to really, really, really improve to in order to become a little bit better. And of course, I mean, he's taken the job on he had the job on a caretaker basis, and now he's been appointed. So, I mean, he is still learning. It is his first full season, whereas Arteta will have had his. This will be his. I want to say third full season with us, in addition to the half season he had after replacing Unai Emery. So O'Neill will still be learning, but all I will say is that with football being the results business as it is, he will need to learn quickly. And he will definitely need to do his homework when it comes to facing sides like Leeds and other teams in the relegation zone. Because I'll tell you what, seeing the way Leeds take apart the Wolves like that, I mean, they slaughtered the Wolves, if you pardon the pun. And they are not going to be easy, believe you me.
I have to head off very, very quickly, but I will be back literally in about 5-10 minutes, I reckon. So I will see you then. Matt, take it away, mate.
You're mute, Matt. I think we should hear you now. We heard the mouse clicking.
That's better, isn't it?
Yep, much better.
You hear me now?
We can hear you, mate. We can hear you, mate.
Cool. Well, I don't know where to go, so he's gone and he's...
Yeah, but we were talking obviously about O'Neill, and maybe he'll continue the discussion. I mean, maybe the decision to bring on Brooks, was it tactically the right decision? I mean, I don't know what you think about it.
I don't know. I think it was more timing, to be fair. I think it was the wrong time to possibly bring him on, but would you bring him on for Smithy? I don't know. Looking back on it, don't think it was probably the right move, to be fair, at the time. It's nice to see him back out there. But yeah, it seemed a bit of a funny one for me at that time. But yeah.
And I wonder if Tyrone Mings coming back into the team, because he didn't play against Bournemouth at Dean Court, but he was in the team at Villa Park. How much of a difference would you say he made to the Villa team? Because it certainly looked a lot different to the team that lost 2-0 on your home turf.
Definitely had Solanke in his back pocket, didn't he? To be fair. I thought, anyway. I thought he defended very well against Solanke. Good player,
Yeah.
Mings. Good player, Mings. I was saying yesterday when we were watching it that I don't think I would have sold Mings personally, but he's a good player. I do like Mings. He's big, he's strong, good in the tackle, good in the air, good defender, Mings.
Yeah.
But, I don't think Solanke enjoyed playing yesterday, to be fair, because he couldn't get past him, could he? Really?
No, and also another issue is that I think there was someone else who said that if there was one Bournemouth player they didn't want to face, it was Kiefer Moore, and yet he was brought on with very little time left. And you talk about the timing issue, Matt. I think that perfectly segues into the issue of whether or not Moore should have been brought on, because at least, being a slightly stronger bloke, similar height to maybe Solanke, maybe, although perhaps a bit taller, he could have gone head-to-head with Mings and maybe come out on top. And it was Bailey who said he didn't want to see Kiefer Moore on. And I'm sure, Bailey, you would have been quite happy not to have seen Moore brought on until very late in the game, huh?
Yeah. Let me just talk about Solanke one, and I'll get on to Kiefer Moore. Of course, Mings had Solanke in his pocket. I don't know why Solanke slowed down when he was 1 against 1. Like, he could have squared it easily. Mings was going to stop him. I don't even think it was Mings who just kept us in the game. I think it was Matty Cash as well. I think he's an absolutely great player. And but Kiefer Moore, of course. I'm glad that I didn't get him, didn't start him. I'm glad they did start him because he's a big lad. Of course. Gary O'Neill, will he stay at you, or will you get a new boss in? We'll wait and see. But looking like you're going down at the minute, unfortunately. But I think you've got a big game after this international break. What you could win, but big win for Aston Villa yesterday.
Yeah, and I'm just watching the highlights now. Obviously, on the AFC Bournemouth YouTube channel, there was a bit of an incident, of course, where I think Solanke had a shot, which was straight at Martinez, but he sort of, as Craig said, made a bit of a meal of that, and it ended up going behind for a corner kick, so not something that Martinez will want to look back on. But he ended up getting a clean sheet, which ended up being his 33rd in 100 Premier League games, snatching the Aston Villa record from, I don't know who had it last. Was it Friedel? Was it Bosnich? Or I'm not too sure. But Yeah, again, this just goes to show that clean sheets are never a good metric when it goes to judging how good a goalkeeper is, because goalkeepers can be shaky AF and still avoid having goals conceded, and then they still get clean sheets credited against them. And yet you can have occasions when goalkeepers have absolutely brilliant games when they make plenty of good saves, but are just beaten by a really good opportunistic strike, and that isn't a clean sheet. So
yeah.
I think it was not really. It was a mixed game, really, because I think aside from what Emi Martinez lends in terms of penalty saving, he also, and I'm going to disagree with Rich Sutherland, who had his interview with Craig. I think when it comes to Martinez, he is the perfect all-round goalkeeper for me. He claims crosses brilliantly. His decision making and his ability on one-on-ones is second to none. And of course, there was a brilliant save he pulled off against Leeds United at Villa Park when he read the flow, the direction of the ball quite perfectly, and was able to save quite brilliantly from the Leeds attacker who had a shot against him on the volley, but it ended up being saved. And that, for me, was quite simply Martinez at his best. But his saves really don't get too much credit, and yet because he's a world champion, if he ever mucks up, people are going to be on his case. On his case incessantly, including a lot of Arsenal fans for whom I frankly have no time, really, because many of them quite simply aren't able to see the bigger picture. But it's I think it was a case, if I take a look at the highlights here, Matt, of opportunities missed more than anything else.
Yeah.
And so what seems also apparent to me is it's inconsistency, which is something you can ill afford at this point, because you can't just really pump yourself up for a game against Liverpool and end up delivering a terrific performance like that, but then end up conceding to Aston Villa. Although it must be said, I suppose it's fair to say that playing at Dean Court does give you a bit of an advantage, because I don't know, maybe you can tell me the stats. How many wins do you have away from home this season?
That's tested, isn't it? Do you know what? I forgot. I've forgotten. Wolves, Forest, one away. Is it Wolves? Just Wolves and Forest? Is it? So I have to double check that, But yeah, there's not a lot. Not a lot.
Yeah, so that is something which will probably need to get better, because one thing I've noticed, Matt, is that if teams are able to have more improved performances at a certain venue, whether it's at home or away, then it can be a little bit, it can be quite helpful. And it's not going to help at all if, the away record continues to be not as good as it is. In fact, I think I do actually have... I do actually have the list right here. In 27 games played, 4 of your wins have been at home, and you're absolutely correct. The wins at Wolves and Forest are the only 2 you've had away from Dean Court. So at home, it's played 13, won 4, and drawn 4. So it's a bit of a fortress, but away from home, I think it's fair to say that the boys missed the seaside air a little bit too much.
Yeah, it's probably right. Well, Max is waiting back stage, so let's bring him on and let's see what his thoughts are from the weekend. Hello, Max. How you doing?
Oh yeah, I'm alright, thanks. How's you?
Yeah, good. Yeah, not too bad, mate.
Good to see you, mate.
Give us your thoughts. What do you think of the game yesterday? Obviously, you were watching.
Personally, yeah, because while I was watching your stream on your channel, obviously I had to stream as well with you guys. Yeah, basically on the game yesterday, I just thought, we weren't clinical enough with our chances.
Absolutely.
Like with Solanke and that, you should have put them away. Because obviously, like Craig was saying, if we had like Callum Wilson, he would have probably slotted that away, like he said on the stream. But another thing that I would say that should have been dealt with the corner kick that made it 3-0. There's one of the smallest players on the pitch scored a header, and everyone was marking Finnair.
Yeah, we did say that on the
5'7", 5'8". He's not being marked. One of the smallest players on the pitch, just marking Finnair.
Yeah, we were saying that on the watch along yesterday about how the shortest bloke on the pitch manages to score a header in that kind of position, which it's poor defending, isn't it? Really.
Was it Emi Buendia?
Can't pronounce it.
It was Emi Buendia, yeah.
But yeah, there's a couple of comments come through as well by the looks of it. I don't think Craig's put these up, has he?
Oh yeah, I was going to mention something about
from
that.
Sam. Good that Fulham had key players and the manager out for the next game. Disappointing yesterday, but we can't do anything about the past. Just got to focus on the next fixtures. Going to be tough. But he seems to think we're staying up. So bit of positivity. And he'll be back next week. And he still hasn't changed his mind on Gary O'Neill. So that's a couple of interesting.
It's before I'm just pointing something out, Matt. Because obviously Fulham played United today, so do with our game on the next play Fulham at home. Willian was sent off for on purpose handball, and Mitrovic was sent off for they put it down as violent conduct towards the ref and that because he was getting, apparently. Does that mean that Willian and Mitrovic will both miss a Bournemouth game?
Well, actually, there's a comment just come through from Dan Short. Hello, Dan. Cheers for tuning in. Mitro got a 6-match ban, I've heard. With what he did, to be fair, I don't know if anybody else watched it. But yeah, he did push the referee, didn't he? So, I think he pointed in his face and got quite aggressive with the referee. So, it wouldn't be surprising if it is definitely a 6-match ban there, which is handy, obviously, because we face Fulham shortly, and I'm sure the manager will get a touchline ban as well.
Do you think? What was I meant to say, Matt? Do you think that will completely change the game with us and Fulham at home because two of their main forwards that start every game for them, it's not playing?
Well, no, I think personally, we've got to be more clinical in front of goal. It's been the same story all season. Both those players aren't going to be available. Willian was the other one that was sent off, I believe, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, he was.
He was, wasn't he? So they'll be out for the Bournemouth game. But the thing is, with us, they could come down here and even without those two players, earn a draw. I mean, if you look at yesterday's chances, we just did not take our chances yesterday, and that's been too many games across the season, really, where we've had opportunities to score goals and we've just not been clinical enough.
Yeah.
So yeah, in some respects, it will make a difference, but if we don't take our chances, it just be, regardless of whether they're there or not.
If we get 3 points at home with Fulham and get a minimum of a point at home to Brighton, because obviously they're in spectacular form, because they smashed Grimsby in the cup today. Personally, I think we get 4 to 6 points in our next 2 games. I reckon we should be all right. So what are we on now? 24. So that we'll be on 28 points to 30 points roughly. So with like 10 games left. So this is, I reckon it'll go down right to the wire because like in lockdown we had Everton went down to the wire as well. When we got relegated with Villa and that, when we needed Arsenal to beat Watford, which they did, we needed to beat Everton, which we did, and obviously we needed don't get offended by this, baby, but we needed Villa to lose, didn't we, so we could stay up. But it was a 1-1 draw. Villa scored and then West Ham scored, but yeah, personally, we needed West Ham to win, and that was it. We had stayed up, but we were very unfortunate. But if it goes down to the last game, it's going to be nail biting because you never know. It's a tight league.
Yeah.
6 points difference between 12th and 10th, I think, because it's 27 points, which is Palace on in 12th, and for the next position up, which is 11th, is like 6-7 point difference. So, you know, obviously, it's personally, I think we'd be lucky if we get a 17th, but that would just go to show to prove that there'll be a lot needed. What do you call it? Updated on the squad and that. So, yeah, personally, a lot would need to be done.
Yeah, no, you're right there. Yeah, I know we've got some stats and that to bring up shortly when Craig's back. But Max, who stood out for you yesterday? Who would you say was Bournemouth's best performer yesterday?
Personally, I thought from watching the game, Billing did okay. Very unlucky with that free kick. Like, although Martinez, world class save. I mean, you could tell he's going to read it, because where he had a wall on the right hand side, to his left hand side, and he was stood on the right hand side. So he was expecting. I didn't see if Villa had a player laid down on the floor, so in case he doesn't do a low driven shot through the wall. But he read the free kick really well, and I don't think even the best free kick taker in the world would have probably scored that, because it was an excellent save, and I don't think Billing could have done better than that, because it took some effort and skill for him to bend it into the top right hand corner than the left. Although it's a superb strike, but the only reason why we lost to Villa is because didn't take our chances, to be honest. We can prove we did it at home. Like Manny was saying, we're a better team at home. Because like you say, we've got 4 wins at home, 2 away, which was Wolves and Forest. But yeah, we dominated Villa at home, but then we get dominated away. So I was surprised by that, really, because I think it was like 6-7 games we've beaten them in a row. So yeah, surprised me, but that, I think us being their bogey team might have come to an end, to be honest. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I was quite impressed with if you're looking at Villa, I was quite impressed with is it John McGinn?
You've got Matty Cash as well. He did all right, didn't he?
Yeah, Matty Cash played well, but I thought John McGinn, he really put a shift in yesterday. I think a couple of times on the watch along, I mentioned that John McGinn was pretty much running that midfield at times. Who do you think was the best performer yesterday then, Bailey?
Yeah, I can pick everyone, to be fair, except for 2 players. I thought Ezra Konsa was shocking, and Leon Bailey. I said it to plenty to Villa fans. I don't rate him, and Villa fans said the same. We don't rate Leon Bailey, and I would have started the run against you lot, to be fair, to give him time. But yeah, man of the match, I can choose most people: Tyrone Mings, Matty Cash, John McGinn, Douglas Luiz. Watkins did alright, to be fair. He probably could have scored 2, but Neto made 2 good saves. Even Mings could have scored past you lot, but another good save against Neto. But yeah, I think John McGinn man of the match for me, and I'm pretty sure Mings got man of the match. But yeah, John McGinn for me. I think he's a class player. We expected him to drop off when Grealish, of course, and went, but no, he's still a class player. And Kamara is, of course, injured, and that would have been the best midfield. Luiz, Kamara, and John McGinn. Villa fans expected him to be out for all season, but he's back after a national break. Diego Carlos is probably set to start after a national break. So we've got a fully fit squad now, and hopefully we can just beat Chelsea after a national break. And
yeah, you'll go into the game with confidence, won't you? After beating us 3-0, and after the international breaks. I don't know if you've got any players going to the international break for England and that, or whoever playing in the international break.
I know John McGinn being called up for Scotland. Yeah. I think that's it, really.
Yeah.
What about Emi Martinez and Buendia? Aren't they going to play those friendlies for Argentina?
Don't know, haven't we checked? I hope not anyway. Because I don't want Martinez to get injured in them friendlies.
I'm sure he won't get injured, mate, because these really just glorified celebrations for the World Cup squad, because Scaloni has picked the same 26 and added a few people, including Buendia, in that squad. So, I mean, it's just going to be a sort of a parade, and I'm pretty certain that Martinez and Buendia won't be given too much of a workout, really. But, I mean, personally, for me, I live for international football, but it's probably just as well that we don't have Ben White in that squad. And I don't see Ramsdale getting any game time, but Saka will probably end up starting. That boy's got so much energy, and yet if he gets injured, God help us.
Yeah, I've got a question for you, Matt. Who are you more confident at home in the Premier League for us this season coming up? Brighton or Fulham? Who are you more confident on getting 3 points from?
Well, I would probably say it's a tricky one because they're both good sides, but obviously with the two players that are going to be suspended. But then again, we should have beaten Brighton away, really, or at least got a draw out of it. So, I mean, being at home, you want to get 3 points off both of those sides, really. But I see that the host with the most is back in the room. Here he is.
You're right, mate. Do you know what? It's nice to actually be welcomed back on to the show like that. That's a first for Up the Cherries and All Departments, isn't it?
What, you being welcomed onto your own show?
Yes. But yes, I've just been on Talk TV. There will be footage, hopefully, that will be going up as well. Was just speaking to Mark Saggers, and an interesting conversation with a Villa fan as well. So yeah, lovely to be on there, and I keep getting invited back, so I'm not doing too badly.
Yeah, they'll be keeping queuing for your autograph soon, I'm sure.
Exactly. The Bournemouth celebrity. Wow, no. But here we go. Kyle is
back.
yes,
He can't
Manchester.
spell, bless him, can he?
No, he can't. United.
No, bless him.
Yes, the Manchester United fan from Bournemouth.
Man United would have lost if it wasn't for that on purpose handball, would it? They'd have probably gone extra time and lost some pens.
Well, I'll be honest, I didn't watch it. I was at the gym.
Not really interested, are we?
So. No, couldn't give a shit. Do you know what? That is the common reply now. Whenever Manchester United are mentioned, it's like, don't give a shit, really.
Don't
care about Man United.
Mate, listen, I don't know you personally, but you've got to read the room. Yeah, I mean, you can talk about other clubs, but don't let it dominate the conversation. This is a Bournemouth fan channel, strictly.
Yeah,
seriously.
Yeah. Although saying that, I would rather support any team apart from Manchester United. Let's move on from them. But or Southampton. Yeah. Nearly forgot them. But let's. I want to answer that question, Max, of who we think we can get points from. To be honest, there's no reason why we can't get points from both of them. Play like we did against Liverpool. We can get points from both of those teams.
Absolutely.
Fulham are, of course, they've got suspensions. They've got managers out. They've also got a hell of a lot of players going to internationals during this spell. So, and I was speaking to actually one gentleman today on Twitter, and he's a massive Fulham fan, goes to all the games, and he said they haven't really been right since the World Cup. They haven't been right since the World Cup because a lot of their players went quite deep into that competition. And he thinks it's had a negative effect. Now there's another international break. I can't see that correcting itself. and hopefully, fingers crossed, with the suspensions as well, which Carl is trying to make out that they've done us a favour. Thank you very much. But yeah, I think personally, I think we should go into that game expecting or knowing that, if we don't come out with a win, we've let ourselves down on that one. I think Brighton have started to pick up a little bit again. They're a very, very good side. Of course, Alexis McAllister is very, very dangerous. I think that's the more difficult of the two games, but we did, Matt, we did push them close at the Amex, didn't we?
Oh yeah.
And I think
at times, even the Brighton fans, as we were walking out of the ground, the Brighton fans were saying to us that, if you guys keep playing like that, you should stay up. And then some fans were saying you guys should have won that today. And at times, a lot of the times we were the better side. But again, like Manny's touched on tonight, the substitution timing was just wrong, really.
By make subs in like 75 minutes. It's too late.
It was just sitting back when you're at 0-0, and you could just see that we were inviting them to score. You could just tell.
I've had a rant about that game.
On the whole, bringing attackers off the defenders and just invite more pressure.
If we play like we did, like you say, against Liverpool, or any decent performance we've had this season, we should be able to pick up points against Brighton at home and Fulham. I can't see why not.
Yeah, I think, my Brighton away was one of the most disappointing games so far this season. And the reason being was we just sat back hoping for a point when we were the better side that day. And it was, honestly, it was disappointing. It was disappointing. So, I think if we carry, go for it, be on the front foot like we did against Arsenal, against Liverpool, against Wolves to a certain extent as well. I think there's, we've got potential of getting two very, very good results, and so hopefully, fingers crossed. There is a couple of comments here from Kyle. We'll leave the Solanke one like we've put there. We do speak about Solanke later on in the show. But
well done.
Do you prefer Zamora or Vina as left back over Kelly? Go on, who wants to fire away? What do you reckon, Max?
So, was he trying to say they all are three left backs, Zamora, Vina, and Kelly?
Yeah, which one would you prefer?
Well, who did Vina come from? Is it Roma?
Roma, yeah.
Yeah, Roma. Personally, I haven't seen Vina play many games this season. I saw him play against Wolves. He was decent against Wolves. But the thing is with Kelly, he has off games and he has good games. Like when we played Burnley, of course, and we lost 4-2 in the cup. He was getting a lot of crap from the home fans, burning him off and that. So I'm in the middle of this. I don't really know who I would pick, but to be honest, I don't know what's going on with Zamora. I think it's something to do with the contract. But
I know a bit about that actually, or a rumour.
Yeah. We'll talk about that in a minute. Yeah.
Go for it. We'll talk about it in a sec.
Vina, I'd like to see more Vina to see how he could develop as a player, see what his key areas are and what his weaknesses are, and that, the pros and cons of that player. Because I haven't seen him. I've only seen him play against Wolves. I don't know if he's played more games for us, but yeah.
Vina. Personally, I think he's, his mazy little run against Liverpool was very, very good. He looks a solid defender, a left back.
I don't think we've seen enough to really judge the guy, to be fair to him.
I don't think we have, but I think that what we have seen is good.
Yeah, what we have seen is good, but yeah, I don't think we've really seen enough to actually say, is he better than? Would you prefer him? In fairness to the player, I don't think, I'd like to see him have a, couple of games to actually make a judgment on him, to be fair. It's a bit of a bit
So,
of a tricky one to just say, yeah, I prefer him to Kelly, or I prefer him to Zamora, or like I say, I mean, Kelly, natural left back, isn't he? It's his natural position.
It is, yeah.
I like Zamora for his attacking ability.
he's got the pace.
And it's, and like I said before, there's chances maybe later on in his career you might see him push further forward in terms of a regular position. But yeah, no, it's a bit of a difficult to answer that. In fairness to Vina, to be fair, I think.
I actually would come in here and say that based on what I saw when Bournemouth played Arsenal, I thought Zamora actually had a really outstanding game.
Yeah,
because there are not too many left backs in the league who are able to, keep Bukayo Saka quiet. And of course, today he had a typical star boy performance with 2 goals against a Crystal Palace team that literally, can be considered broken Crystal at the moment. That'll teach him to sack Patrick Vieira and deny him a reunion with us. But Zamora, when Bournemouth came to the Emirates, I thought he did a really good job in keeping Bukayo Saka quiet. And it must be said that in as much as we tried to come back at you after going behind very early in the game, you handled us quite well. And Zamora actually played a role in keeping that entire right side, which is, of course, Bukayo Saka and Ben White, rather quiet for the most part. And so he does seem to lend a little bit more in terms of an attacking impetus. But as a defender, he's certainly not half bad either. And I do seem to remember you talking about the issues with Lloyd Kelly, which, saw him lose the captaincy to Pedro Neto. So he has had to probably work a little bit harder to get back into the side and try and really prove himself. It's a shame that these things are happening right now with Zamora, because I did like what I see in him. And I think there is someone who can contribute a great deal to the club in the future, but with his contract situation the way it is, and obviously that sort of impasse which can affect the harmony of the club, it means that you just can't play the player for reasons of team harmony, and it's all the more saddening. Didn't see much of Lloyd Kelly when he came because I wasn't able to watch the match in its entirety. I think to answer that question from Carl, I probably would pick Zamora over Kelly, but having that type of competition can only be a good thing, and maybe it'll bring out the best in both of them. And, we're crying out to see Kieran Tierney play a lot more. He got 25 minutes a day and showed why he's much the better left back than Alexander Zinchenko. The only problem is Arteta just won't give him the starts. So Zamora over Kelly for me.
In fact, I have seen a rumour that has been going around, and I tell you what, after I've told you what the rumour is, because it was on one of these Facebook group things that you can get, but they've started introducing chats. A gentleman called Aaron, I don't know how in the know he is, but the rumour went like this, that Zamora is still not happy because he hasn't got parity with Jadon Anthony's contract. He wants to stay at the club, but feels that he's worth a lot more. And the club in France are willing to take him for what he feels he's worth, and therefore he's going to go to that club. Now, like I say, I don't know the legitimacy of this rumour. It could be, let's be fair, rumours can be complete and utter made up garbage. But it makes sense. Makes sense. I guess he would want parity with Jadon Anthony. They've been in the youth side. They've grown up together. And I think he would be, I can imagine he would be disappointed if, he doesn't get that. So go on. Let's go round this room. Does that make sense? And in fact, a team in France, there's only one team that you could think maybe could it be that he would go to Lorient? He would go the other way round.
Didn't one of our Bournemouth players come from Lorient and Montpellier?
Yep, Dongo.
Dongo. Where's
Dongo
that?
Atara.
Yeah, and what about who's the other one? Traore. Where did he come from?
Sasule.
Oh, did he?
Which is certain.
Yeah. That's it. With Zamora, like you was going on about. I saw this thing the other day actually. One of the lowest Premier League players was Zamora as well.
Yeah.
I think it was like £950 a week, something like that. Like, I didn't expect that. Like,
I think there's a lot of rubbish out there, but it makes sense that he would want parity. A team in France, you could think maybe Lorient.
Depends how much.
It makes too much sense. It makes too much sense for me that Jordan Zamora has made it quite clear he wants to stay. I think he has made it quite clear he wants to stay. But if he feels that he's worth more, and the club are getting him too cheap, then that's a problem. What do you guys think? Do you think there is legs in that sort of rumour?
Well, there's got to be something, whether it's exactly that or what. There's got to be something along those lines going on, isn't there, for him to be not involved in the squad? So if he's turned around and said, right, fair enough, I think I deserve more. This club's offering me more. I'm going to sign for them. Well, then you might as well start planning without him. Mm-hmm. For me personally, I'd pay him what he thinks he's worth because I think he is a quality player. And I would pay him what he thinks he's worth. I mean, let's put it, we're not short of a bob or two now, are we? Let's be honest. And I'm sure, one person's wage ain't going to break the bank balance, is it? So, and I think in the long-term future, you never know, we might be able to cash in on him and make some money out of him. But I don't think really that's the way the club will go now. It's not like the old days. So, but in terms of his qualities as an individual, as a player, I would just put down what he wants. I really would. There's still got to be room for negotiating, isn't there?
There has to be. And my question, really, and my thought process to this is, have they got the plan of bringing Vina in and saying, right, okay, Jordan Zamora, just let him go, which is not the Bournemouth way. It's not what we're used to. In fact, we do have another guest just waiting backstage before we just go further around the room. It is audio only, I believe, but welcome to the show, Riley. How you doing, mate?
Yeah, good, mate. Been watching, so excited to get involved.
Excellent, and thank you so much for joining us. I know we've spoken on Twitter a couple of times, haven't we?
We have. We've had the odd conversation.
Excellent stuff. So, what do you make of the Jordan Zamora contract situation? Do you think there is legs in this rumour that maybe he's off to France, that he's not getting parity with Jadon Anthony, and that he wants to stay, but feels that we're not giving him what he's worth?
Yeah, no, I think he does want to stay. I mean, he lives with Jadon. I don't think there's any bad blood there. I just think it's probably maybe more an agent thing, maybe wanting more money. Maybe it's a problem with game time. Maybe Gary prefers him over Kelly and Vina, which he hasn't really, but I reckon it's probably down to money.
Yeah. I think that's a disappointing thing, really, is because he is a young talent. He is on, if rumours are to be believed, on one of the lowest wages at the club. And, fingers crossed, he seems to be the future. That's what, at the start of the season, I thought Jordan Zamora would take to the Premier League like a duck to water, and Jadon Anthony was the one that would struggle a little bit. It's been the other way round a little bit, hasn't it?
Yeah, it has. I mean, Zamora's done well for us. I mean, what's weird is he played Arsenal. I thought he was decent in Arsenal, especially against Saka. And then probably tried to give him a new contract, and he, for one way or another, didn't do it. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know how many games he started, but I'd reckon it's probably the majority, you think?
Yep, until very recently. I would
Right.
say
Yeah.
I can't think of many games that he has missed. So, yeah, I would say the majority. I think there was a little spell, wasn't there, in the middle of the season, if I'm right in thinking, where he was dropped.
I think, yeah, Lloyd Kelly was preferred for a bit, maybe around Christmas. After
Yes.
the winter, maybe, winter break. But yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not confident we see him again.
And that would be a real shame, wouldn't it?
Yeah, he's academy product. It's nice to have someone who really loves the club like he does.
Yeah, definitely. Manny, should we be keeping hold of Jordan Zamora? We've got bags of money. We've got loads. Let's be fair. We could stay up. We could buy Vina. Do we need him? Firstly, secondly, is there much logic in what is going on at the club over this contract?
Oh, Craig, I'm so glad you asked me this question because I have so many. I have quite a few comparisons here.
Go on,
I'm
mate.
just taking a look at Wikipedia right now, taking a look at the stats of both Zamora and Anthony. And as you've said, they both came through the Bournemouth Academy together.
Yeah.
I think, I think Zamora was probably at the academy only for 1 year because before that he was at Queen's Park Rangers and Charlton Athletic before leaving London to come down to the South Coast and was there in the academy for a year. And then in 2020 he made the first team. Whereas with Anthony, he was, of course, an Arsenal youth product, being at our academy for the best part of 10 years before also leaving London to come down to the South Coast. I think that's maybe an idea. If you want to have a better quality of life and better career opportunities, forget about London. The Southeast Coast is where it's at. And given that I was born in Eastbourne, which isn't too far away from your neck of the woods, I probably should know better. But yeah, so Anthony has made 68 appearances, including 45 during the season when you lot got promoted from the Championship, whereas Zamora has made 52 and only made 33 appearances in the Championship. And I think Riley touched on a point when Zamora had been dropped briefly for Lloyd Kelly.
Yeah.
That might have been a reason why he hasn't made as many appearances as Anthony. But you take a look at his output. Zamora's 3 goals he scored were during that Champions League campaign in the Championship. He only made 1 League Cup appearance in that season, of course. As for Anthony, who's more of a striker, he's got about totally 12 goals for you lot, but again, he's a striker, and his 8 goals in the Championship and 3 in the Premiership so far have been pivotal. I sort of compare this to the Arsenal situation where you take a look at someone like Eddie Nketiah, who undeservedly in the eyes of many fans is on 100,000 quid a week and has the iconic number 14 jersey, which was worn by Thierry Henry and now and of course Theo Walcott before him. Of course, Walcott is back at Southampton. I'm sorry for mentioning that, but he and Bukayo Saka, of course, were in the same youth team together. But you can see the levels. You can see how much Saka has completely evolved and developed and grown into the complete player. Of course, a full England international now with 2 major tournaments under his belt, whereas Eddie Nketiah has not really been able to make that level of a grade. So you can see from the output that Saka deserves a bigger contract, and quite rightly so. There doesn't seem to be too much difference, however, between Zamora and Anthony. I suppose maybe they feel as though Zamora wasn't with the Bournemouth Academy for long enough. That could be a factor. But again, when you take the consideration that both of these two have played important roles in getting the Cherries promoted back to the Premiership, you would say that they've both been quite pivotal, and they both have had sort of a comparable impact, you would say.
Mhm.
So I think there is some good sense in making sure that Zamora gets what he wants. And I'm not privy to how much the boys are being paid over there at Dean Court. I really can't see can't see why there is such a disparity in how much Anthony is being paid compared to what Zamora is being paid, because I would like to see them at least see there be a little bit of parity. Maybe they just feel as though Anthony's output has been a lot more consistent in a way, which is why he's getting a little bit more. But it would be a shame to lose Zamora, because when he's at his best, he can certainly, do really well. And especially with Kelly having been dropped earlier on in the season, to bring him on and also have Vina as an option would be really good. Of course, now you're in a position where you have 3 left backs in that position. You want to have 2 competing. What's going to happen to the third one? So it could very well be that circumstances might force your hand, and you might end up having to let go of Zamora, who also happens to be a full international for Zimbabwe, by the way.
Yeah.
And he might feel as though he might want to get more playing time and more exposure so that he can continue to develop as a player, which would be a shame, because clearly he seems to enjoy the club. The fans also love having him around. But again, it's just a question of having 3 left backs competing and leaving one person not even involved in the squad. I think if Zamora doesn't get his wish, then maybe maybe hands could be forced. I'd like to see Zamora stay at Bournemouth. I think he's someone who could really improve the team. And if it means paying him a little bit more so that he and Jadon Anthony are on par with one another, that's fine by me. You're not going to see Eddie Nketiah demand that he be paid more so that he could be on par with Bukayo Saka. No chance. And now, of course, Nketiah's dropped. Trossard scoring goals. Nobody's talking about Nketiah anymore. So I think Zamora should be made to stay. I mean, not made to stay, but you should do whatever you have to do to try to get him to stay. And if it means paying him a little bit more dosh, so be it.
Just a comment here from Paul in Oz. Jordan obviously in a contract talks, hopefully sorted in the next 2 weeks with no game. Sounds like a board decision on his worth. Cheers, mate. Yeah, great to have you again, Paul. Thank you again for joining us. And yeah, I'm hoping that's what's going on, but it just seems a bit weird freezing him out like they have. And are they trying to push his hand to accept something that maybe is a bit lower than what he feels he's worth? But I completely agree that I believe that, there's a lot of agent talk in this as well. And, of course, Riley, you mentioned that there. Hopefully, fingers crossed, it isn't an agent being greedy, because we've had that before. Of course, the Ryan Fraser situation, yeah, it was handled terribly by Ryan Fraser. But at the same time, I think there was an agent in the background going, go to Arsenal, go to Arsenal, go to Arsenal, and that never materialised anyway.
Yeah, no. So, but yeah, what I just find weird about Zamora thing is, how is it different to what's going on with Lerma?
That's a very, very good comment. And let's go round and discuss Lerma, because I'll tell you what, Riley, let's start with yourself, because my understanding with Jefferson Lerma is that it isn't really a money situation. And just looking at, social media, it doesn't appear it is a money situation. It appears it's more that he feels that he's done his time in the UK and that he wants to go back to Spain. Of course, he can't speak very much English at all. I believe, was it yourself, Matt, who said Lerma's wife, she is Spanish, isn't she? She is from Spain?
Yeah, I believe so, yeah.
Yeah. So is that a benefiting factor? Or do you think we could keep hold of Lerma?
I don't see us keeping hold of Lerma. He, like you said, he probably wants to go back to Spain, and I think he has done his time. He really didn't have to stay with us when we went down. Not when we went down, but Well, yeah, but the next season as well, that championship campaign under Parker, I don't think he had to stay. He definitely had options elsewhere, and fair play to him for staying. I don't see him signing a contract. I feel like he would have done it by now. Even it doesn't seem like it's close, or even a proper offer being made. So he probably wants to go back to Spain, and I'm happy with that. And if he keeps keeping up with his performances and being passionate, so yeah, I don't think we'll see him next season, unfortunately.
No, I gotta agree with you. And let's be honest, Max, if Jefferson Lerma keeps us in the Premier League, that is the best send off that he could give us. It's, you compare that to the Fraser situation where he was refusing to play for those last 7 games. You know, Lerma's done everything the right way, hasn't he, really?
Yeah, he has. Yeah, I think he has. Yeah, he's probably been one of our best midfielders. He can control the game at times. When he's at his best and that, and yeah, because if he does, as much as I don't want him to go, he's a good player, especially with that goal line clearance when VVD was about to score in the box against Liverpool. Yeah, I'll be sad to see him go, but that just goes to prove if he does go, we can't give him like hate in that, because when we went down, like Riley was just saying, he could have just left, like Ake did, but obviously Ake's like one of a really good centre back, so he's playing every game for City now, of course. But yeah, can't give Lerma any criticism if he leaves, because he's probably one of our best midfielders. But that just goes to show and prove, if Zamora and Lerma both leave at the end of the season or earlier, then that just goes to prove that we're going to have to do proper looking in the transfer window. When's the next one? Summer transfer window.
Yes, yeah.
So we're going to have to look for left back. Is Zamora left back? And then obviously Lerma as a midfielder. So we're going to have to do some proper looking for, because it's a good month, isn't it? So we have to make them replacements really quickly in that, and not just rely on the reserves in that, because we need players that want to be just as good as the ones that have left, or maybe even better. But yeah, I hope Lerma stays, but can I see him staying? I don't really think so, to be honest. What do you think?
Go on, Matt.
Well, if you read, obviously, we discussed this recently, haven't we?
Yes.
So, obviously, my thoughts on it. Obviously, it looks like he's definitely going. And I think he's playing his socks off at the minute, because he wants to leave on a high, and he wants to leave Bournemouth in the Premier. When you read through other press and media, it looks like he has done a deal with a club in Spain, and it's rumoured to be Seville.
Yeah.
So in which case that would be a natural progression for him, because Seville normally get European football, don't they? And he wants to obviously probably test himself at that level, and you can't blame the guy. But I mean, he's been a fantastic servant for the club. It'd be sad to see him go, like the majority of Bournemouth supporters, but fair play to the guy. He's an absolute credit to himself. He's dropped down to the Championship with Bournemouth. He's fought his way back up to the Premier League with the club, and let's hope he leaves on a high with Bournemouth safe in the Premier come end of May.
Exactly, mate. Exactly. What we'll do as well is, of course, I did mention Gary O'Neill and the criticism he is getting again after the result yesterday. To be honest, I could go through it till I'm blue in the face about why I think he should be afforded time. But guys, do you think Gary O'Neill has done a decent job? All things considering, what we need to also consider and factor in is the amount of injuries we had, during that spell where he was struggling, how he's got integrated these new signings in we've got to take into account the Liverpool performance, the Everton's performances, and I think one of the best games. And I don't know if you agree with me, guys. I think one of the best games was when I went up to Fulham. When I went up to Fulham, I thought we played very, very well that day. I thought we were outstanding. Yes, we were pegged back twice, but I think that was an iffy penalty. I think that was an iffy penalty.
Yeah,
Right.
that was with the Lerma as well. Apparently, they were saying it was a bear hug with Mitrovic, but with that guy,
Yeah.
he goes. Thing is, he'll go to ground in the penalty box, but he won't go to ground if he's squaring up in a referee's face. So how does that work out then?
Yeah, I know. I was a bit frustrated that day.
That is a bloody fraudulent offence, in my opinion. You can go. Sorry, it still is. It seems you can go to ground, for just running into someone, and then there's you going like that in the referee's face, and then getting all angry and that. Oh, bloody hell! You don't see rugby players and that going, do you?
Don't worry about Fulham away now, but because of course we can put it right on the 1st of April. But I tell you what, let's go back to Gary O'Neill. Riley, I'll start with you.
Yeah.
Have you been Gary in, Gary out, and do you feel that there is a case for actually sacking him at this point?
Wow. We'll start from the beginning. Comes after Parker, all that debacle, the 9-0 play 0-0 when it Wolves against Wolves.
Yes, yeah.
I think that was a boring match. I can't even remember. Barely can remember that one, but steadied the ship and then obviously went 2-0 down at Forest, came back 3-2. And went on that good run, six games unbeaten. Was it?
Yeah, it was. In fact, if we
6 games unbeaten.
If we look back to that time, and this is what's crazy.
You've got a lot of 0-0 draws as well. 0-0 draws, like against Wolves, Brentford. You got 3 points against Forest.
Leicester.
Leicester.
Yeah.
Everton.
Yep.
And there's another game I can't remember.
No, Everton was after the Southampton one. I believe, if I'm, no, this was a fact. From that Liverpool defeat up to the next defeat for us, which I believe was the Southampton game, wasn't it?
Southampton, yeah.
Yeah, lost 1-0 to Southampton.
So
in that
between
game.
Liverpool and Southampton, every team had been beaten once in that period of time.
Yeah, no, that is true, but I think it's a bit of a honeymoon period. I think the players were really backing him, and I think they wanted him in. Like, I remember Simon Jordan saying that's never a good sign. You shouldn't, for players who want a manager in, it's probably not a good sign. But yeah, to be honest, I think that's the run that got him in. And then we lost to Southampton and went on a pretty bad run. Was it Southampton then 2-0 West Ham, maybe?
Yeah, the West Ham match was the following one, wasn't it? Where it was that game. I did think at that point, I thought we were unlucky that day because there was their first goal was dubious.
It was that volleyball, wasn't it?
Yes, yeah. And then, of course, there was the penalty. And Jordan Zamora, where he slid in. If somebody's going to fire a ball at you from a yard out, where do you put your hands? You haven't got the reaction time to actually put your hands anywhere. I thought that was really, really cruel, both of those goals. Yeah. I would have said that even if I wasn't a Bournemouth fan and I was watching two random teams playing on TV. I think, it was very, very harsh, and it gives a reason for VAR not to exist. But
yeah, no, it did, yeah.
Let's be fair, we got beat and we weren't in great form. And I think, of course, we beat Everton twice, didn't we? beat them in the cup
In the
4-1.
cup 4-1, yeah.
3-0 in the league. A very, very poor Everton side. But do you feel, because this is something that, of course, that's been going on Twitter, since that game, do you think that those two results earned Gary O'Neill the job against Everton?
Yeah, I think they did. I remember in the statement they were saying how the fans wanted him because Everton 3-0 at home. We were all singing his name, weren't we, doing the
Yep.
chant? And I think our board probably saw that as we want Gary O'Neill in, and we want him to be our guy. I don't think he should have. I don't think it should have happened. You can't. We're fighting for our lives in this division. You kind of need experience, and I think that's probably been showed at points this season. I think
No, fair enough.
Spurs, Leeds, those bottling 2-0 results back to back. That was probably a warning sign, and then we beat Everton twice, and all of a sudden he's got the job. I think we saw it after the winter break. After that, we didn't score, we didn't win games, and we were very poor then. We've been better now, but I still think he's got mistakes in him. He doesn't know how to control the game as it gets to the end. I think, I don't know, it's probably, now is the only chance to get him out. I don't know, I'd probably want to see him go just because of our really busy schedule now. I think we're playing loads of games in the next few bits, and then we've got April we have Leicester,
Yep.
Southampton, all those teams, Leeds, West Ham. I think new manager bounce under a new manager. I think that could probably help us stay up, but I don't think we will sack him.
I think you've hit the nail on the head. If we are going to do it, we do it now. It has to happen in this window, so he has the new manager, whoever that may be. And I think they would have needed to find that new manager, because I don't think we can go into it with a caretaker. I don't think it's fair on Tommy Elphick. Say, for example, they turn around and say, look, we're getting rid of Gary O'Neill. Tommy Elphick's going to take interim. That's not going to work. I think we need to, if we are going to do it, we need a proper manager, somebody who has got that experience. And everybody knows who I've mentioned before. I'm not going to mention him again. Matt's probably going to smile in a minute because he knows exactly who I'm talking about. But yeah, interesting fact though there, and a point that you made, Riley, is, and I'll take this around the room actually, because of course Gary O'Neill's had a lot of injuries that he's had to cope with during this spell, and of course results picked up a little bit more recently. However, Leeds and Spurs, of course, we were well in control of both of those games. The Leeds one was a complete farce how that fell apart, because 3-1 up against, and I know that the Leeds fans, when they come on, we turned around and said we shouldn't be getting beat 3-1 by teams like Leeds. They said, oh, teams like Leeds, we're a much bigger side, but at the same time, they're probably on our level on the pitch. Probably not in the stands. We've got a lot smaller stadium. But do you think, Max, I'll start with you on this. Do you think that shows that even when Gary O'Neill had that full strength squad for those two games and was in a controlling position, showed tactically he is struggling?
Yeah, personally, yeah, tactically is. Why bring attackers off when you're winning the game and bring defenders on? That's just like having the door there and letting them knock on it, and they banged through that within 20 minutes. We were 3-1 up with 20 minutes to go. 15 minutes to go, it's 3-2. 5 minutes to go, it's 3-3. And in extra time, they score a fourth goal, and then we paid the price. Tottenham, again, 75 minutes in. 8 minutes in, should I say. 2-1 up, bring attackers off, lose 3-2.
Matt, of course, we watched that Leeds game, and would you say if we go down and we're relegated by a couple of points, personally, for me, unless there's another farce, during the rest of the season, where we completely and utterly blow something from a winning position, that Leeds game is the one that I would blame for us getting relegated.
It would definitely be part of the cause, but I think when you get relegated, I think you've got to evaluate the whole season.
Mm-hmm.
You can't just really pinpoint one game in particular. I mean, you look at the Brighton game, for example. That's a prime example. We should have got something out of that day. Even a point. Do you know what I mean? It would have been.
We were the better side.
Result, and we were the better side. Like I say, and I even had Brighton fans tell me on the way out at the stadium. Like I said earlier, we were the better side for long periods of the game, and so I don't think you can pinpoint one game. I think you've got to evaluate the whole season. Obviously, the little bit where Parker was in charge, I think you can possibly, take that with a pinch of salt. You look at the start of O'Neill's reign where, it was like Riley was saying, I think earlier. Sorry, I've been doing some other work in the background for something else in the future, but that will come out later.
Yes.
So I have been listening, but I've just been on doing some other work. But that was that honeymoon period where we did go those games unbeaten. But then you got to look at it from post World Cup, where we just didn't really turn up to the first several games.
Yeah,
so not really. I mean, look at the Brentford performance. Awful.
Oh, that was awful. Yeah.
The Crystal Palace home performance wasn't great at all. So I mean, to pinpoint, it's disappointing. The Leeds game and the Tottenham game both disappointing to be in winning positions, to be pegged back, but I don't think you can really pinpoint one game when you get relegated. You've got to evaluate everything.
I was going to say, at home, drew 0-0 to Brentford, drew 0-0 at home to Wolves. If we pinched a goal in one game, if we won both them games 1-0, that would have been another 4 points on the board.
I think I think the Wolves performance, I think the 0-0 was the best result after getting thrashed by 9 against Liverpool. But I think, personally, for me, being in such a dominant position and having that collapse was really, really disappointing. Manny, you've been very much in support of Gary O'Neill, very much like me. Personally, yes, some people are going to say that I'm a little bit swayed because I've met him, and I got on very, very well with him, and his astuteness and his tactical knowledge, and it shone through, and I thought we've got something good here. We've got somebody good. Do you feel that regardless of what happens, we should stick with Gary O'Neill, for the rest of this season, firstly, and then into next season, be it in the Premier League or the Championship? Because I've got another theory of what will happen on that front. But what do you think?
Well, I think I did allude to it earlier, Craig, when I said, the gentleman who came on our free-for-all show after the Arsenal game also said that Gary should stay on, even if you do go down to the Championship. And I also said that we need to also bear in mind that this is his first full season as a manager, and sacking him, I'm definitely not in favour of sacking him right now. And I think it sort of segues back to what you said. Be careful what you wish for. You just might get it. And I really don't see Bournemouth being able to get any kind of a proper proper quality manager, the type you'd want, who'd be willing to come in at that stage of the season and try and save things. And I think Kyle sort of has mentioned it over here. Do what Company is doing, build his career from the Championship. That is more or less a good shout, because when you're able to sort of test yourself at that particular level and see how well you can perform, you know that you can at least recover from the setback of being relegated, but also have the feather in your cap of promotion from the Championship, and it might make you a better manager. This isn't necessarily to say that Bournemouth will immediately be promoted back from the Championship, because of course you got to do what you did all over again. And as we saw in Burnley getting thrashed 6-0, the ex-Manchester City captain has now realised that there are differences in levels, because although Burnley are top of the Championship, they came up against a side which is currently second in the Premiership, albeit the defending champions, and they were just completely hit for six, pun intended. And now back to Gary O'Neill. I do want to see him stay on. I have said that, and I think Max has also made it crystal clear, that his in-game management isn't really the best. And it's a bit of a shame, because you also talk about how you met him, Craig, and how impressed you were by his tactical acumen. You wonder if a person who talks such a good game, how can he possibly consider making some of the substitutions he made and doing some of the things he did, which obviously changed the shape, the formation? It's bad enough to do those things, but to bring on David Brooks for Adam Smith, you just don't take off a defender like that and bring on an attacker. And you certainly wouldn't want to bring on a defender when you're up 3-1. You've got to try to keep that same shape, which has served you well, and just continue attacking. But as I've said, O'Neill still is in his first full season, whereas other managers have had at least 2 seasons behind them. So in many respects, he is still learning. And it does seem apparent that obviously the decision to give him the job based on that honeymoon period seems to be flawed in hindsight. I don't think it is, though, because all of these seasons can sometimes hinge on some very unfortunate occurrences. You were comfortably in mid-table at one point, and then that defeat to Southampton, I think that really set things in motion, because emotionally it was a South Coast derby. You wanted to show that you were more than capable of, that you were well worth your rise in the table after being so low. And then to suddenly lose a South Coast derby like that and give Southampton bragging rights, it would have hurt you. And it would have sent you into a bit of a spiral. I think that affected the confidence in some ways, and that sort of festered into the type of performances that you had against Leeds and against Spurs. And tragically, of course, against Arsenal, where you were the better team for the best part of an hour, to lose that way you did was absolutely sickening. And despite being an Arsenal fan, I was choked for you lot. And I'm not saying this because I'm on a Bournemouth fan channel. You deserved something from that game, because we were awful for the most part. But there is a lot of good in Gary O'Neill, and he really needs to, in my opinion, start to become a lot more introspective and really start to figure out, what went wrong, what he did that was wrong. And you want to see a manager who'd be willing to stand up and say, tactically, I got it wrong, and I shouldn't have done things this way. And if you have a manager who does that, there is potential for improvement. If O'Neill is willing to acknowledge his mistakes and say, going forward, we're not going to do that, then you have some hope. And I will say this, Craig. We've had this discussion before. Yep. You've said it perfectly. When he goes to a back five, it either looks very good or it looks awful. And going to a back five can look really, really clunky at times, especially if it means having that conundrum with putting Chris Mepham and Jack Stevens in the same central defensive area, when Mepham might not really be the best at defending set pieces. So he switched to a back four, and you could see the improvement against Liverpool. Again, against Aston Villa, it was a case of, some decisions and some fine margins really affecting everything. And, it was just unfortunate that things turned out the way it did. But I want to see him really start to keep thinking and just trying to be a lot more introspective and just thinking to himself, what could I do better? And if he can do that and really show signs of being a better manager, then yes, he deserves to stay. And another reason why is because he took on the challenge. He showed that he was more or less up for it. And you've mentioned that injuries have not done him any favors. So to just sack him and say, sorry, but we need to stay up, again, be careful what you wish for. You just might get it. Burnley sacked Sean Dyche. He's now at Everton, working miracles with them. He beat us at Goodison Park, and they drew against Chelsea at Stamford Bridge, and they're rising up. So again, be careful what you wish for. You won't get anyone at this particular point in time. And history has told us that whenever you sack your manager in the middle of a relegation campaign and end up with the caretaker taking care and taking charge, it's too little too late. And the care you take is just not good enough. So I think you need to stick with Gary. Simple as that. I think there is really a good manager in him, and I think he will build the team going forward. If he does keep Bournemouth up, though, next season will be make or break, because you don't want to have a repeat of another difficult season where you end up losing too many games and end up being sacked. Look at what happened to Jesse Marsh at Leeds, for example. So this season, I'd like to see him just at least see everything out, regardless of what happens, regardless of whether you stay up or don't. I want him to stay, and I do think there is a decent manager in him. He just needs to be willing to acknowledge his mistakes and improve on them. It's as simple as that.
Well, my theory is if we stay up or go down, personally, I think that the board will... Not so much the board, actually. I think Bill Foley will bring in his own man. I think he'll bring in his own man regardless. Which, of course, some people will say Gary O'Neill's been harshly done by there. If that does happen, but then again, how many times have we seen that in football where somebody keeps a club up and then is replaced anyway because they feel that there's a new manager who can take it in a new direction? Yeah. I think, and I've got a feeling that that's probably how it's going to go. What we'll do is we'll wind everything up very, very shortly, but we do have some stats from the Villa game, and I think we might as well go over these just to see, firstly, is there any highlighted problems? But secondly, we did say to Carl earlier on that we were going to discuss Dom Solanke. He has asked a question actually about do you think, just in one word answer, do you think Vieira would be a good replacement? My answer, no.
No.
Manny says no. Riley?
No. Who knows? That's 2 words, but who knows?
Fair enough, I'll give you that. Max?
Personally, no, probably because, what happened with him at Palace, it could exactly happen with us, so you never know. So, personally, I wouldn't take the risk. I'll just stay with Gary O'Neill and see what happens. Because, what was I meant to say? So I'll say it in a minute. When you
that's all right, mate. That's fine, no problem. So there we are, Kyle. That's your answer. It's a resounding no. So here's the stats from Villa Park. You never know. He might take over from your mate Ten Hag at Man United. Carl, you like that?
That will be the day. Former Arsenal captain taking over at one of Arsenal's biggest rivals. I do not see that happening.
I have to wind Kyle up. Well
done, you. Well done, you.
So, of course, the ones in red is where Villa have got, the better statistics over us. So, possession. Not that much more possession, really. I think to be fair, like I was saying,
apparently 60% is the domination mark.
Is it?
Yeah.
I think, personally, I think up until that second goal, I think we was well in that game. Shots on target, Villa had 9, we had 3. that says it's probably its own story there. And we'll come on to that because that's quite a good point. Moving on, Matt, isn't it, to what we're going to discuss in a minute.
Yeah.
Shots 20, we had 10. So
just goes to show we didn't take our chances. Only 3 on target. That's poor.
Touches, Villa. To be fair, touches is always a funny one, but passes as well. 447 to 350. Now, our passing, and Joe Rothwell in particular, was Beckham-esque. It was sensational passes, excellent passes over to Dongo. Dongo's passes were good. I think where we, just going back to the game yesterday, I think where we actually struggled was the shorter passes because Villa suffocated us with that. What do you guys think on that front?
Yeah, with shorter passes and that, you'd thought they like with the box stuffed in and that and put us under pressure.
But it shows 20 tackles that we made.
They're 16.
Yeah, to their 16. I think it shows in my mind, and again we'll go quickly around the room, but I personally think that shows we was well within that game up until that second goal. I think after that second goal went in, or when that substitution was made, and I feel terrible for saying this. I really do feel bad for saying this, but David Brooks, it was amazing to see him come back on that pitch, but it was the tactical manoeuvre which was wrong. Manny said it himself as well. It was the tactical side that was wrong. It wasn't bringing. If I think Dongo
should have brung a defender off a defender and then brung a winger off a Brooks.
Personally, I think Dongo was struggling a little bit at that point, and I think maybe bring Brooks on for Dongo.
Exactly, winger for winger, a right back for right back, or defender for defender.
Yeah.
Not attackers off, but defenders on.
Because Brooks didn't get that many touches, which is a shame in itself.
What minute did he come?
I'm trying to think now. Probably around
77th, something like that.
77th minute. So, yeah. That's a shame because I think if he was brought on for Dongo, personally, I think he would.
Impact.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, I think the shape and the tactics were completely and utterly wrong. Do you think? What do you make of those stats, Matt? Because you're quite you can read into stats a lot more than probably I can. I don't think I've done too badly there, have I? I've not done too badly, but
well, no. Now you're making me sound like some sort of professional football statistician.
Who do you want to be? Alan Hansen? Gary Neville?
Chris Kamara.
Chris Kamara, yes. Chris Kamara.
Anyone but Gary Neville, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, to be fair, Craig, I mean, really looking at that, I'm the one that I thought Villa were a bit more dominant in the possession than that. I'm surprised it come out as close as it did. But what you can see is, it's the chances at goal that we're having, isn't it? When you look at it, I mean, 10 shots, 3 on target to their 20 shots to 9 on target. Do you know what I mean? It's for me, that just proves, and we'll talk about this a little bit further on.
Yes.
It just proves how we haven't been clinical in front of goal all season. You could see from some of the stats as well, like the clearances, 17 clearances, you see we were, at times, especially second half, it looked like we really fighting for our lives. We kind of lost it completely. Whereas in the first half, I thought we competed.
Yeah.
You know, it's yeah, for me, it's the shots on target, and it's the total amount of shots that we're having is it always seems low in comparison to other sides. And I think that's been, I mean, even under Eddie, we used to concede goals, but you always could see more goals in us.
Yes. Yeah.
We always looked threatening in front of goal, and that's probably because we did have the likes of Wilson and King and players like that, and not trying to pin everything straight onto Solanke. But this season hasn't been, overly great for him in front of goal. But
I think that
yeah,
probably leads on to the next point, doesn't it?
Yeah.
well,
Well,
yeah, I think we've got to look at the actual players' ratings from yesterday first, to see if anybody has any other thoughts on that, or whether anybody disagrees on the ratings that the players were given.
Dongo 6.
Yeah.
Who did them players that ratings?
Sorry?
Who did the player ratings?
This is from Sky Sports.
Sky Sports. Yeah. What I was going to say was, from our perspective, when we're 1-0 or 2-0 up with whatever time of the match, we will sit back. But like yesterday, Villa were 2-0 up in 86th minute, and they didn't even sit back against us. They, like Matt were saying, Craig, in your stream yesterday in the watch.
Yeah.
They still kept pushing forward. They didn't just sit back and do AFC Bournemouth. They just kept pushing for that third goal. That just goes to show why, when we sit back and that, we had fewer shots than them. They had twice as more shots as us, because we had 10, they had 20. It just goes to show that they wanted it more.
I think the sitting back is a big error, and Villa did it
enough.
Yeah, Villa did it well, where they just kept going. And they didn't have it all their own way. It wasn't a one-sided game. But personally, I think Gary O'Neill's tactics probably added to that scoreline. I don't think it was much the players' faults. The first goal I think was avoidable. If you do watch it back, Adam Smith, he seemed to not know what was really going on behind him.
Yeah,
Jack Stevens,
yeah,
kind of lost his man. Stevens is. It's a difficult. Stevens and Metham are two difficult ones. Stevens is great from set pieces. I think out of the two players, he's better in the situation of a set piece. However, I think with regards to Metham, I think when the ball's on the ground, he's probably the better of the two defenders.
Yeah.
What do you reckon?
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, but yesterday, when you were saying about their first goal, it didn't help that, because we was in their box trying to defend them for like a good 30, 40 seconds, and there was a lot of ping pong in there, which didn't help.
Couldn't clear it.
Yeah, there's a lot of ping pong going on in there, but that's what didn't help. Yeah, couldn't clear it as well. But that's what, when they cut in the byline and put a pass straight across goal, it went straight to Douglas Luiz's feet, and you couldn't miss from there. And obviously he slotted it home, and we paid the price.
Riley, do you agree with those player ratings?
Yeah, I think Neto probably deserves to be a bit higher. I think he was easily our best player yesterday. Probably kept us in the game. Lloyd Kelly, I don't think he was great yesterday. Trying to look at the other one. Roffey, he probably deserves to be higher, don't you think? 5?
Yeah, most definitely.
I think that's low. That's low, because he was pinging that ball across that midfield yesterday, wasn't he?
Beckham-esque, someone said.
Say again?
Beckham-esque, someone said.
Yeah, that I'll let Craig take full credit for that.
Yes.
for that,
I keep saying he's Beckham-esque. I think with
Beckham-esque
Rothwell jumping in there, Rothwell is his passing is outstanding. I can see why Blackburn rated him so highly. I don't think he's so much more the physical player. I think Lewis Cook is much better, in a physical situation. Of course, Lerma's on the pitch, yesterday, so he did all the physical work. Rothwell did, the passing. I think he's outstanding. I think he's an outstanding signing. He's really come on, but I got to agree. Rothwell should be a lot higher than that. What did you make of the substitutions? Of course, we've mentioned the Brooks substitutions.
We only made 3 subs, didn't we?
No, we did make the 5, but the Moore and Vina were quite late. But what do you reckon, Riley, with regards to substitutions and when they happened?
I'm trying to think when they happened. Traore came on quite early, well, the 60th maybe, which I was happy he came on earlier. I think Gary's probably left subs quite late, especially attacking ones. I'm glad he came on. Nice to see him again. I think Moore probably could have come on earlier, to be honest.
Yes.
Solanke didn't have the best of games yesterday. And
Mings had him in his back pocket, didn't he?
Yeah, he did.
And because we brung Kiefer Moore on, he could make them runs in behind and bullet header, because he proved it at the start of the season from when Kelly swinged a crossing. And I think he scored a bullet header from where the penalty spot was, from that range.
Yeah, no, he did the first day of the season. I think when you're 1-0 down against a team like Villa, they're a good team, but
you just got to go for the spoils.
You got to go. You got to bring Dom off. I think Dom didn't have the best games yesterday, obviously, but you bring a striker on. You need Dom Solanke, Kiefer Moore. He can probably get something, or he can at least.
I mean, he hasn't played the last 4 or 5 games, has he, Kiefer Moore? He's just been benched, not even brought on as a sub.
Yeah, I can't remember the last time he was brought on as a sub.
Yeah, I was going to say, going back to tactics and that, and where we've been like 2-0 up and like throwing it away and that. I've got a question for Manny. What I was going to say to him was, where do you think Bournemouth went wrong from conceding 3 goals to Arsenal late?
Yeah, I think if memory serves me right, I do believe that Gary wanted to make a couple of substitutions after the Senesi goal, and that's probably what he should have done. He should have been a little bit more proactive. But again, it sort of comes back to the issue of being a little bit too defensive when you have a 2-goal lead, and sort of not being able to try and withstand the inevitable barrage. I do get the fact that obviously after going 2-0 down, Arsenal were still trying to, come back as hard as they possibly could. But then making some like-for-like substitutions, it's always going to be difficult, and the timing always has to be spot on. I just want to make sure that I, go back to that game and just take a look at which of the substitutions were made, because, yeah, okay, so. Right, so
I mean, Arsenal's defence for the 9-second goal and the corner goal were asleep, but it only took them 5 minutes to bounce back and regroup. And as soon as Thomas Partey scored that goal, then I was like, yeah, we're still winning, but are we going to do what we did against Tottenham and Leeds and just throw it away like that? Yes, it's Arsenal chasing for the title. I mean, you're 9 points clear, and as much as because I saw all on social media, we was getting a lot of hate saying, "Oh, we deserve to get relegated 2 divisions for that rubbish." But the thing is, which is I think it's a load of rubbish as well. But it's Arsenal at the end of the day. Yeah, we could have at least got a point out of that game, but I mean, there should have been 3 to 4 handballs, so we can consider ourselves it's not a bad result, although we were 2-0 up. But Arsenal fans were expecting it to be a 3 or 4-0 or 3-1, 4-1, but. We went up there. We showed that we're a good team, but we're just unlucky at the end of the day.
Yeah, if there's one substitution I can sort of look at, it was the decision to bring off Jack Rothwell and bring on Lewis Cook, who's more of a defensive substitution. I think that sort of summed it up. He wanted to bring off Zamora, and I think he brought on Fredericks. And also, that was a double substitution, bringing off Semenyo for Jaden Anthony. I think Anthony and Fredericks were probably, like for like, if you will. Obviously, Zamora had to go off, and there was no sign of Vina or Kelly in the squad, so he had to bring on another fullback, I suppose. And obviously, with Otara maybe tiring a little bit, Christie came on in the 82nd minute. That substitution, bringing Lewis Cook on, because as you said, Partey actually got one back with. I think maybe it was justified bringing Cook on anyway, because of course Partey and Ben White had actually equalised by that time. But there's always going to be a part of me that thinks that if Gary O'Neill had made those substitutions immediately after Senesi got the goal to put you 2-0 up, that would have been a lot better. So it's not just the nature of the substitutions, but also the timing, really. And I don't look at it as 3 points lost in any sense, because Arsenal were desperate to try to make up for being absolutely poor for the first hour, it has to be said. And again, it's always a question of the timings. I don't know if I'm sure when you had the call-in show, you were talking about the stats from that game, and I think it's fair to say that Bournemouth really were really good for that hour. But again, it's all those fine margins, those moments, and it just goes to show that as a manager, you've got to be really a little bit more proactive. And that is one thing that Gary will learn going forward. And of course, the confidence from that match really helped you against Liverpool. So you just got to think of the things that you've done right. But Gary also needs to take a look at himself and think also of the timing and everything. Be a little bit more assertive and proactive. And if he can do that, he will start to improve, and you'll see the performances get a little bit better. Because mind you, if Partey hadn't have scored when he did, and if you had kept your hand or your foot on our jugular, we would have struggled to come back in that game, and you would have had a well-deserved win.
Yeah, it's because what I was going to say was, like Jordan Zamora and that, keeping Saka quiet for like the first hour. Right? I think he only let 1 or 2 errors go through in that. But do you think if Bournemouth scored that third goal, and it was in like 70th minute, and we were 3-0 up at the Emirates, do you think it would have ended 3-0, or do you reckon the score would have ended if we scored that third goal in the 70th minute?
I would go so far to say that Bournemouth would have won, and deservedly so, because when you are 3-0 down with about 20 minutes to go, that is a huge mountain to climb for any team, even Manchester City, with all of their attacking Arsenal.
They proved it against Tottenham, didn't they? 4-2.
Yeah, but
do you think, Oh, sorry. What I was going to say was, because if we were 3-0 up in the 70th minute, do you think Arsenal would have at least came back to fight and still lose 3-2?
It's hard to say, mate. It's hard to say, because I think it's quite fair to say that 3-0 down with that time to go, it would have demoralised any team. And Arsenal, especially, we especially would have, found it a little bit difficult. And I think a third goal would have literally sapped the confidence out of us, because you can come back from 1-0 down, you can come back from 2-0 down, but 3-0 down is really a bridge too far, even for a team like Arsenal, which is still a fairly young team.
You did it against us in 2016, didn't you? We were 3-0 up in 75 minutes and we blew it.
Agreed, but I actually would tend to look at that as a point dropped by us, because we, being the way we are, should never have been in a position where we had to be 3-0 down to you lot at Dean Court in the first place. And it's nice that we were able to sort of claw back and win a point. But a team like Arsenal, we look at ourselves and say we never should have been in that position in the first place. And of course, 2016, Arsene Wenger was our manager. None of those players in that squad, if memory serves me right, are still with the club today. So it's a completely different scenario. And I just think if you had gotten that third goal, it would have buried us. Simple as that.
Well, we just got on to what Gary O'Neill said after this game against Aston Villa. So I don't think we were well beaten. I got to agree with that. I think the last 10 minutes got a bit scrappy when we opened it up. I thought at 1-0 we were right in the game. We created numerous opportunities but weren't clinical enough, didn't take them. We started too slowly and gave Aston Villa a little lift at the beginning. We lost some individual duels. That isn't like us. We let Aston Villa wriggle out of situations where we had good pressure, and then we need to do better from situations we create. The control we had, the amount of times we arrived behind their back four was a lot. We didn't manage to convert. We need to work with Dom, of course. We'll bring that on to this next point. There was a lot out there we could have done better with today. There were individual performances. I expect better from them, but it's always as a group. There is no blame on Dom. Everyone has weekends where you're slightly below your best. That's just the way it is. We'll stick together. The group understands it fully. We need to bounce back again. We need to make sure we keep creating chances. It's my job to work with the players and make sure we're better at taking them. So, Dom Solanke. And I'll give my view on Dom Solanke in a moment, but Matt, far away.
It's just interesting to see with obviously Gary O'Neill yesterday, saying, kind of highlighting Dom, not blaming Dom, but highlighting him. And I thought it'd just be interesting to look at his stats and compare his stats to maybe a couple of other strikers, which we'll do shortly. But his personal stats don't look great in comparison to his stats of last year, do they? Now,
No.
I wouldn't expect Dom to go and hit as many goals as he did last season. I don't think he's that kind of player. But wouldn't you expect double figures at least this season?
I would expect probably low double figures, but I would expect double figures.
But you would expect,
Yeah.
a 10, 11, a 12 kind of goal season, wouldn't you, after last year?
And I think, and there was one opportunity that Dom had, which I think highlighted why he hasn't scored more. And to be honest, it was made to look a lot better than it was because Martinez completely spilled the ball. And I personally think that moment, it highlighted if, say, for example, Callum Wilson was running through or actually scrap Callum Wilson, Kiefer Moore was running through. Yes, it would have been a lot slower, but Kiefer Moore plays that ball. He's a little bit more directed. It just seemed like Dom just shot it anywhere. Thought, right, okay, go for power. Yes, Martinez spilled it. Maybe the power did something to that, but the placement is the key thing when you're a striker.
Absolutely.
That's why he's not scoring as many, in my opinion. What do you reckon, Manny?
Yeah, I'm taking a look at that goal right now as we speak, and I think we have to credit. Obviously, Bailey didn't rate Ezri Konsa, but Konsa does deserve credit right now for, cramping Solanke for room and not giving him much of a window to shoot. And when you take a look at it, it was the power that sort of, really did for Martinez. He was also probably unsighted by his defense. So I wouldn't really call that a goalkeeping error necessarily per se, unless, of course, that had nestled back into the net. But, obviously, I've seen Martinez handle that handle shots like that much better. And maybe he was unsighted by Konsa, I don't know. So I'm not willing to blame Solanke at all for that because he deserves credit for, despite having Konsa hot on his heels, getting that shot on target and being able to, force Martinez into some sort of action there. I think if the shot had been a lot, slower and softer, that's an easy claim for the World Cup winner. So there is a lot of talent in Solanke, and I think if we take a look at the stats, I think Bournemouth have played close to something like maybe 30 games a season because that's about 26 or 27 games in the Premiership and a few games in the EFL Cup and the FA Cup, obviously. And he's only made about 22 appearances, so it's not as if he's been necessarily the main. I mean, maybe he has to some extent, and you would think that he would have scored a few more goals. But obviously, when it comes to the way he's taken some of his goals, it's been, quite class in a way. I think he seems to be struggling maybe with a confidence issue. And if he goes a few games without some goals, it might affect him. Strikers thrive on confidence, as we all can see. So this is another reason why I actually think the Fulham game would be this is the best time to play Fulham, because they've conceded 6 goals in their last 2 games, 3 against Brentford and, of course, 3 against Arsenal. So thank you very much to us for softening them up for you, as it were. And obviously with Willian and Mitrovic out and Silva out, that is going to, really hurt Fulham in a way, because when you take away that attacking threat, both of them have really looked Fulham's sharpest attacking threats. So you take them out, what can they possibly do? And that's the onus is now going to be on you lot to take advantage of that and keep running at them. And if memory serves me right, it was Solanke who scored against Fulham when you played them at Craven Cottage. So history should repeat itself. This should be the chance for him to right a few wrongs, as it were.
Well, what Matt has done is he's compared Solanke against 3 strikers there. Explain your thought process of picking these 3 strikers in particular, Matt, because I think it's quite interesting.
Well, just looking at it, when I was looking at Dom's stats earlier, I thought it'd be interesting to compare him to someone who was playing in the Championship last season in Mitrovic, even though he's been a naughty boy tonight. Comparing him to someone like Che Adams, who's in the dogfight with us, and then comparing him to someone who's just got into the England squad. All different strikers in their own right, but it's just interesting to look at the stats and, like their average match ratings is quite interesting. But when you really look into it, some of these is, like Mitrovic's performance is probably more kind of what we were expecting Solanke to be hitting this season.
I don't know, actually. I personally, Mitrovic, I think, has over exceeded what I expected, but I think Solanke should have been closer to him.
I would say I would expect Solanke to have at least 11, 12 goals come the end of the season.
Yeah, I think Mitrovic has probably done better than expected. But then again, the last time he was in the Premier League was under Scott Parker, and I think Scott Parker, he suffocated him. He didn't utilise him to what Marco Silva's doing at Fulham. No. So full credit to Silva.
Whereas even Che Adams has got a couple of more goals than Dom.
Yeah.
Like you look at it also shows what possibly the sides are creating for the strikers as well. Because if you look at Mitrovic and Tony, they've had 86 and 72 shots between them, regardless to whether they're on target, off target, or whatever. It obviously proves that the team must be creating for those 2 players as well. So it's not just a case that it's like looking at Dom as an individual. We can also look at it as a whole team collective.
Yeah.
Because, it's all a case of, feeding Dom. But I think Dom, is a hard working striker. He works hard for the team. You know, no one can fault Dom's effort this season at all. But, you know, is it a case that moving forward, if we stay up, do we need to buy an out goal scorer to play in front of Dom, and Dom kind of does the work in behind? Because I think if you get an out goal scorer alongside Dom, I think he'll create for him all day.
Yeah, I agree.
I really do.
Agree.
I think Dom's footwork is amazing. You know, it's fantastic. You know, he can hold a ball up if needed. You know, and if you stick someone that's going to thrive on that alongside him, it will be a really good little partnership. And then that would take a lot of pressure off Dom, because I think there's a lot of pressure on him this season. Because obviously with him performing so well last season, you know, like I say, you know, we're expecting double figures, aren't we, in terms of a goal
Yeah.
tally this year? But that's not obviously happening. So I think there's a lot of pressure on the guy. And I suppose in some respects, rightly so, because he is your number 9. He has been your goal scorer last season. But at the same time, at this level, I think he needs to play with maybe him with someone in behind him isn't the right. Even though Billing has done well in that role, Billing's popped up with a few goals. You know, is it a case that Solanke needs to play more that slightly deeper role, and we bring in another striker to play in off him?
Yeah. Well, I've just been comparing, and while you can see the flicking back between, I'm just comparing Che Adams against Solanke, and Dom's had more shots than Che Adams. He's had, well, slightly less minutes. But I think it says its own story that maybe Che Adams is performing slightly better, you know, and that is what is worrying. But I completely agree with your point, Matt, because what we were saying about having somebody next to Dom, I think we've got the player who can do that. And that player is Kiefer Moore. We've done that. We have done that. So why don't we employ that? Or do we need somebody who is a little bit quicker? Because
I think with Kiefer, they have played together, haven't they? But I think they kind of put Solanke a bit wider, didn't they? Not actually in behind. I mean, for me, I think you need a nice pacey player in there with Dom to run off him. That's what I think. I don't think Kiefer Moore's that man. Whereas yesterday, like we were saying during the watch along, we could have done with Kiefer probably coming on earlier. You know,
chucking the balls into the box.
Yeah, we were discussing, weren't we? I mean, like sometimes we don't play to Kiefer's strengths. You know, we were saying yesterday, okay, it's only an inch, but he's an inch taller than Mings. You know, so could he have, you know, harassed Mings a bit more than in a different type of way to the way that Solanke was not doing? So yeah, it's an interesting one, but I think Kiefer Moore is the option from the bench to try something different, but I don't think we do, to be fair. I don't think we play to his strengths. But in terms of Dom, I personally think we need to bring someone. I mean, I know the guy from Bristol City. You'll pronounce his name better than me. Semenyo. Yeah, him. You know, is he the man to do it? I don't think he's an out-and-out goal scorer.
No, I think he's very Solanke-esque, isn't he?
Well, when you look at his stats, I think he played like 100 and something games for Bristol City, and I think he scored about 15 goals or something like that. When you look him up on Wikipedia, which I'm sure Manny's about to do now, when you look him up, I don't think he's got a great goal for games. So I don't think he's the man. It'd be interesting to see, you know.
We need a Callum Wilson.
Yeah, a Callum. Yeah, you know, a Callum. Someone of his kind of mould to come in and yeah, help Solanke out.
What about the chap at Lorient?
Be interesting in summer, wouldn't it? I mean, if we
Yeah,
stay up, you know, I would, wouldn't be surprised if you saw something like that happen.
yeah,
You know,
Yeah.
but yeah, I just think it was an interesting, with the way what Gary O'Neill was saying in his
mhm.
press conference yesterday. I just thought it'd be interesting to compare Dom's performance to some other different types of strikers in the league.
Yep, yeah, definitely. Um, I think I think it's such a shame after we had that great result, and it was a great result against Liverpool, but maybe we need to learn from this. We've had a setback, and we're now going into a game with Fulham after this international break. With and Fulham are going to be weak. They're going to be weakened by what's happened, and personally, I think we've got a chance. I think we've got a chance.
I think you do too. And if I could just lend my voice to the issue of who should partner Solanke up front, I've taken a look at Semenyo's stats, which Matt has said I would do. And he's not an out-and-out striker at all. I mean, in his 5 seasons at Bristol City, 112 league appearances, 16 goals. Just taking a look at that itself will tell you that that's a pretty poor return for a striker. And at 5'8", he's not exactly a very tall sort of bloke. So to me, it could be either the case that either Billing or Anthony would be a perfect partner for Solanke. And I take a look at the Billing Solanke partnership, and I think, in as much as maybe they don't individually score too many goals, between the two of them, they seem to contribute a great deal to the attacking threat and impetus that Bournemouth would provide. But the most important thing I would say is that Kiefer has to be used a lot more, pun intended. And that means when you have a situation where this gentleman Moore did in fact score against Villa at Dean Court, it makes no real sense to hold him back until deep into the game, especially when, if you talk about how someone like Rothwell was pinging those those Beckham style crosses in, that itself should give you a possible prospect of Rothwell and Moore combining to potentially scare some defenses. And you only need to take a look at the likes of Wout Weghorst at Manchester United to see the impact that a big target man can have. Although I think Ten Hag is using him completely all wrong. Bringing him off the bench is the best thing you can do for a guy like him. And someone like Moore needs to get brought off the bench a little bit earlier, because maybe his slowness might not really complement Solanke that much. Although you could say in theory that to complement Solanke's pace, you want to have someone like Moore who could potentially hold up the ball a little bit more. But with Billing probably doing that a little bit more, then you don't really see Kiefer getting much of a look in. But Moore has to be used as a super sub. That is one thing I can say with certainty. And so it will have to be either Solanke and Billing or Solanke and Anthony. Semenyo won't be your answer. And look, Fulham will be an opportunity for you to start getting back on the wagon, because Aston Villa themselves had that dreadful period where they lost 4-2 at home to Leicester, 3-1 at Manchester City, and then 4-2 to us. And they've recovered since then with 3 clean sheets in their last 4 games. So if they can recover well, there's no reason why Bournemouth can't. So I think it's a question of if you were able to pull off that 1-0 win at Liverpool after that chokeover result against us, then there's no reason why you can't pull off a win against what will be a weakened Fulham team, who will be coming to Dean Court low on confidence, having conceded 6 goals in their last 2 games, and who will, of course, be without 2 of their biggest attacking threats. But you just got to believe in yourselves. That's all I can say. Believe in yourselves, enjoy the process, and that should work out for you just fine.
Well, we're going to wind it up there, but thank you everybody for joining us on this show. Please hit the subscribe button as well. And believe it or not, Carl has come out with my thought entirely. you should have snapped up Moffey when you had a chance. And Terem Moffey, unfortunately, was the man that I was thinking of. He's actually playing for Nice at the moment, and there's an obligation to buy. So for €30 million plus a 15% sell-on clause. So he's going to Nice.
Well, here's
One
an
that got
option for
away.
you. We've actually got a striker named Balogun who's playing in the league and pulling up trees there. If Arsenal don't give him any games, maybe you can try and get him on loan.
You never know. Wouldn't be a bad shout. But, Manny, a pleasure as always to have you on the show. I'm sure you will be cherry picking with us very, very soon.
Looking forward to it. Wouldn't miss it. No matter how busy my schedule will be, I will always take time for cherry picking. Very relaxing, you see.
It certainly is, mate. It certainly is. And I've got to work out which way I point now. Yeah, because we're in different places as normal. But Matt, thank you again, mate, for being on the show, and of course holding the fort whilst I was off talking to Mark Saggers on Talk TV as well.
I think you find Manny did most of it.
But yeah, a pleasure as always, mate. And of course, we've got a very, very special show or series of shows going to be coming up very soon, haven't we?
Yeah, but still in the works at the minute.
Still in the works. We will reveal all very, very, very soon, and I'm very, very excited actually to be part of this. So yeah, it's going to be good. But until the next show, up the cherries. Hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll get a win against Fulham. I'm sure we'll have some footage before then, and some shows. Of course, we'll have cherry picking, and we should have this special show as well getting underway. But until the next one, up the cherries, and we'll see you then. Thank you for joining us.